Hey everyone, it's your girl, Maddie here, aka Beaver Mosh, and today I am talking to you about beliefs of dead stargazers and soothsayers from the Brisbane, Australia band Pustilence, and this is the Memento Mori release. And here, Pustilence puts together a grisly, nasty, and old school leaning death metal album. And this record trims the fat. This is just pure ugly brutality for its entire runtime. This is a particularly chaotic death metal. So much is happening. It's just a pure onslaught. And the band is quite good at changing things up on a moment's notice. The music is always constantly shifting and never really letting you settle in. Aspirants of Intemperance starts things off with these chainsaw riffs that have these squealing licks attached to them. It's a highly disturbing note to start things on, and then the blast beats roll in with jarring effect. There is no intro or time to ease into this album, and it doesn't take long for this track to become completely chaotic. The guitars constantly shift from these violent chops to these more sinister tremolos. We get time shifts. The vocals do a lot of changing. Everything feels like it's just jerking around at will. The vocals will sit between these deep low growls, but sometimes will interject these hellish screeches, and sometimes both of those vocal approaches will be kind of layered on top of each other for perhaps the ugliest harmony you have ever heard. The approach to this album and this track in particular is, at the end of the day, actually rather straightforward and simple, but the band has fun with that and sometimes chooses to take very complex routes to get there. Sometimes with those intense layering and intricate arrangements that they utilize. And also they do that with some of the interesting studio effects. Take, for example, here, this kind of hovering in phaser effect that I think gets used later on in the record as well. It's off-putting and kind of psychotic feeling. On Profound Assiduity, the drums on some passages will feel rather conventional, and others they really don't. They put together these perplexing, thrillingly confusing, and abstract passages. And then I love the more doomier and somber solo. The music here feels like it's rotting, and the guitars are weeping about that. But then, a couple measures later, we get the faster, more technical, screeching lead. Solo number 2. Hearing these two side by side almost in comparison has this cool, jarring effect. And in the production here, it's primal, it's nasty, it's ugly. Settles for nothing less than pure grime and filth and aggression. There is nothing clean to be found on this album. Concupiscence features this hopping, gurgling groove. It's chunky and toxic. And it's holding up these creepy, ominous vocal samples. But then it ramps up into this galloping thrash riff. The sudden shifts in speed that this record incorporates while maintaining an even ferocity is one of the most interesting and exciting aspects of the entire record. I love how some of the most obtuse leads on this record will sit on top of the most even rhythm that's actually kind of humorous when you really pay attention to that. And then I like, throughout the album, but on this track in particular, how whenever the vocalist will interject these absolutely curdling screams just because he can. And then there's this hyper brutal, cagey, mosh ready break. It's heavy as all shit. The slicing, percussive riffs on Out With The Plains of ultimatum give the track its real momentum. And this is really carried by the vocals here, just by how gruff and jagged and viciously delivered they are. And rhythmically as well, the vocalist varies things up from some more syncopated line to some more sustained howls. It's really impressive, the diversity of the vocalist abilities. Procured propensity grinds in with maximum intensity. These riffs are dirty and mean and destructive. Things do slow down though quite a bit. There is this chilling creepiness that comes from these discordant arpeggiated licks, but, and I lose my shit every single time I hear it, this bleak mid-tempo atmosphere will be interrupted and burst open as the vocalist lets out this unhuman, unleashed scream into the void. And as that happens, everything speeds the hell up. It's madness. Visage thamaturge is really structured around this incessant chromaticism, even within the furious tremolos. And in doing so, in this decision, putting the notes this way, make it feel very tight. It feels so active, but also feels as if it's not progressing at all. It's interesting. It makes this track feel hollow and undead and moving but void of any sign of life. On demiured divertizement, I really appreciate how the brutally felt vocals will kind of follow along rhythmically and melodically with the stomping guitar riffs and punchy drums. It makes each note feel very dynamic and layered and dense, and it makes each moment feel amplified in its destruction and heaviness. The bass as well plays these horrifyingly muddy and distorted riffs underneath. It just feels like it's soaking in dirt. Then everything kind of winds down to this excruciatingly slow pace with these held, squealing notes and a low end so pronounced and heavy. I don't know how the amp holds it. It's dangerous. Extricated Conquest, kind of the last track before this instrumental outro piece that they end the record on, is built around this slow, kind of sludgy riff. It's a nice change up in the riffing style here. I wanted to talk about the double bass here because it's just recorded really well. You feel every click and it just sounds so nice in the headphones. And this track eventually becomes so erratic. The guitar riffs are constantly changing, speeding up, slowing down, just changing chorus. Oh, the chaos. It's hell yeah. So for those who are looking for death metal at its most vicious, at its most ugly, and its most unpolished, this will ring true for you. This is a maddening listen with a lot of variation as well to keep it interesting throughout. It's brutal, it's monstrous, yet everything feels so intentionally paced and composed. The drumming is fantastic. The riffs are destructive. The vocal performances rule. This is just a good ass death metal album that I think you should check out. And hey, those are my thoughts. If you liked this video, consider hitting the like button. It really helps kind of get it out there. if you'd be so kind, I would mean the world to me if you'd consider subscribing. Leave a comment. I really enjoy getting to engage with those. I have a Twitter you can follow. Link to that is in the bio of this YouTube channel. Every one of you who interacts and engages my content, I really, really appreciate it. So thank you. Keep it metal. My name is Maddie, aka Beavermosh, and I'm signing off.